Somewhere not too far from where you are right now, there is a plant growing quietly. It might be in someone's backyard. It might be along a dusty roadside. It might even be growing in a place you pass every day without ever noticing it. No sign, no label, no advertisement telling you it is important. Just a simple green plant doing what plants do, growing silently. Most people ignore it, not because it is rare, not because it is expensive, but because it looks ordinary. And that is exactly why it gets overlooked. Because in today's world, we have been trained to believe that anything truly valuable must look special. It must come in a bottle. It must have branding, marketing, and a price tag that makes it feel important. But sometimes, the most useful things don't look like that at all. Sometimes, they are simple. Sometimes, they have been there the whole time. And sometimes, they have been quietly used for hundreds of years by people who never needed a label to tell them what works. Now here is where things start to get interesting. In different parts of the world, especially in regions like India, Africa, and Southeast Asia, this plant is not ignored at all. People don't walk past it. They don't overlook it. They use it. They cook it. They eat it as part of their daily meals, just like you might eat spinach, cabbage, or kale. For them, it is not a supplement. It is not a trend. It is not something new. It is simply food, part of a normal day, a normal dinner, a normal life. But here is the part that most people in the Western world, and many others, have never really been told. This same plant has been studied by researchers for its potential effects on two of the biggest health challenges people face as they get older: blood sugar and artery health. Two things that quietly shape the quality of life after 50, after 60, and beyond. And yet, despite all the conversation around health, supplements, medications, and diets, most people have never even heard its name. So today, we are going to slow things down. No hype, no exaggerated promises, no confusing medical language, just clear, practical information. We are going to talk about what this plant actually is, what it contains, what science says so far, how it may affect your body, what it costs, and how you can use it safely. Simple, direct, useful. But before we reveal the name, there is something important you need to understand first. This is not just another leafy green. This is not something you sprinkle on your food and forget about. This plant is biologically active. That means it can actually influence what is happening inside your body. It can affect your blood sugar levels. It can interact with your metabolism. It can support certain processes, but also potentially interfere with others. And that matters. Because if you are someone who is already taking medication, especially for diabetes or blood pressure, then this is not something you casually add without thinking. This is something you approach with awareness, with respect, and with the understanding that natural does not always mean weak. So if that applies to you, the smart move is simple. Before adding anything new, talk to your doctor. Not because this is dangerous, but because it is strong enough to matter. And that is a very important distinction. Now, with that clarity in place, let's take a step back and understand the bigger picture. Because to really understand why this plant matters, you first need to understand what starts happening inside your body as you get older. From the day you were born, your body has been performing an incredibly complex task without you ever needing to think about it. Managing sugar. Every time you eat something, a piece of bread, a bowl of rice, a fruit, even something that doesn't taste sweet at all, your body breaks it down into glucose, a simple form of sugar. That sugar enters your bloodstream, and from there your body sends out signals, primarily through a hormone called insulin, to move that sugar out of your blood and into your cells, where it gets used as energy. When this system is working well, everything feels normal. Your energy is steady. You don't feel extreme highs or crashes. Your body runs the way it was designed to run. Quietly, efficiently, consistently. But here is what most people don't realize. As the years go by, this system begins to change. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. The signals your body sends start to weaken. The cells don't respond as quickly. And over time, sugar begins to stay in your bloodstream longer than it should. At first, nothing feels different.
You go about your day. You eat the same foods. You follow the same routines, and everything seems fine. But under the surface, something is changing. And that change matters. Because when sugar stays elevated in the blood for too long, it does not just sit there harmlessly. It begins to cause damage. Not dramatic damage, not immediate damage, but small, slow damage, the kind that builds up over years. It affects your nerves, it affects your kidneys, it affects your eyes. But perhaps most importantly, it affects your arteries. And this is where things become serious. Because your arteries are responsible for something essential. They carry blood from your heart to every part of your body, every organ, every tissue, every cell. When your arteries are healthy, they are smooth on the inside, flexible, wide enough to allow blood to flow easily. Your heart doesn't have to struggle. Everything works in balance. But when those arteries are exposed to long-term stress, especially from high blood sugar, they begin to change. The inner walls can become rough, they can become stiff, they can begin to narrow. And when that happens, your heart has to push harder. Pressure builds, circulation becomes less efficient, and the risk of serious health problems starts to rise. This is not a rare situation. This is not something that happens to other people. This is the reality for millions of individuals over the age of 60. So maybe right now, you are watching this for a reason. Maybe your doctor has mentioned your blood sugar. Maybe your blood pressure is not where it used to be. Maybe you are simply trying to stay ahead of things, to take care of your health before problems become harder to manage. Whatever your reason is, this is where we shift from the problem to something that might help. The plant we have been talking about is called Moringa. Its full scientific name is Moringa oleifera, but most people simply call it Moringa. Some people refer to it as the drumstick tree because of the long, slender seed pods that grow from its branches. But in many parts of the world, people don't give it a special name at all. They just call it food. And that matters more than you might think, because Moringa is not a modern invention. It is not something created in a lab. It is not a synthetic supplement. It is a real plant, a tree, one that has been used for generations. People have been cooking its leaves into meals, boiling it into soups, drying it and grinding it into powder, drinking it as tea, using it as part of daily life for hundreds of years. And only more recently has modern science started taking a closer look at it. Now let's talk about what makes Moringa worth paying attention to. Because on the surface, it might just look like another green leaf. But inside those leaves, there is a lot more going on. Moringa is incredibly rich in nutrients. It contains potassium, the same mineral found in bananas that helps regulate fluid balance and blood pressure. It contains calcium, important for bones and muscle function. It contains iron, essential for oxygen transport in the body. It contains vitamins A and C, important for immune function and overall health. And it even contains a meaningful amount of plant-based protein. That alone would make it a valuable addition to many diets. But that is only part of the story. Because beyond vitamins and minerals, Moringa contains something even more interesting: natural plant compounds. These are substances the plant produces on its own, and many of them appear to have biological effects in the human body. Researchers have identified more than 90 different compounds in Moringa leaves. Some of the most studied include quercetin, chlorogenic acid, and isothiocyanates. Now, those names might sound complicated, but you don't need to memorize them. What matters is what they may actually do. Now that you understand what Moringa is and why it has started to attract attention, let's take a closer look at what the research actually says. Because this is where things move from tradition into science. For a long time, Moringa was used simply because people observed its effects. They didn't run clinical trials. They didn't publish research papers. They just noticed how it made them feel. But in recent years, researchers have started to study it more carefully. And one of the first areas they focused on was blood sugar. Early studies were done on animals. Now, that is usually the first step in research. Before testing something widely in humans, scientists observe how it behaves in controlled environments. And what they found was interesting. In a large majority of these animal studies, Moringa appeared to help lower blood sugar levels, not slightly, but consistently, across different experiments, different conditions, different setups. Now, that doesn't automatically mean the same thing will happen in humans, but it is a strong signal that something is worth investigating further. And that is exactly what researchers did next. They began conducting human studies, smaller in scale, but more directly relevant. In several of these studies, people with elevated blood sugar levels, or type 2 diabetes, were given Moringa in addition to their regular routines. And the results? Encouraging. In multiple cases, participants showed improvements in their blood sugar levels over time. Some studies even showed improvements in HbA1c. Now that is important, because HbA1c is not just a snapshot. It reflects your average blood sugar over the past 2 to 3 months. So when that number improves, it suggests a deeper, more consistent change. Another interesting finding came from studies looking at what happens after meals. Because for many people, the biggest challenge is not just overall blood sugar, it is the spike that happens right after eating. You eat a meal, sugar enters your bloodstream, and for a short period, your blood sugar rises sharply. Over time, repeated spikes like that can contribute to long-term damage. Even if your fasting blood sugar looks okay. Some studies suggest that Moringa may help reduce that post-meal spike. Not eliminate it completely, but soften it, make it less extreme. And that matters more than most people realize. Because controlling those spikes is one of the key pieces of long-term metabolic health. So the next question becomes, how? How does a simple leaf influence something as complex as blood sugar regulation? There are a few possible explanations, and while research is still ongoing, several mechanisms have been proposed. First, Moringa may slow down how quickly sugar is absorbed in the digestive system. Think of it like this. Instead of sugar rushing into your bloodstream all at once, it enters more gradually. That gives your body more time to respond, more time to process, and less stress on the system overall. Second, some compounds in Moringa appear to support insulin function. Now remember, insulin is the signal that tells your cells to take sugar out of the blood. If your cells respond better to that signal, then sugar can move where it needs to go more efficiently. Third, Moringa may influence how the liver handles glucose. Your liver plays a major role in managing blood sugar. It stores glucose, it releases it when needed, and in some cases, it releases more than necessary. Certain compounds in Moringa may help regulate that process, helping the liver maintain better balance. Now, none of these effects on their own would be considered a miracle, but together, they create a pattern that suggests real potential. Now let's shift focus to something just as important, your arteries. Because while blood sugar often gets the attention, your blood vessels are just as critical. And here is something many people don't fully realize. One of the biggest threats to your arteries is not just cholesterol. It is something called oxidative stress. Oxidative stress happens when unstable molecules, often called free radicals, build up in the body. These molecules can damage cells over time, including the cells that line your blood vessels. And when those cells are damaged, the smooth inner surface of your arteries begins to change. It becomes less flexible, less responsive, more prone to buildup. This is where antioxidants come in. Antioxidants are substances that help neutralize those harmful molecules. They act as a kind of defense system, protecting your cells from damage. And Moringa is rich in antioxidants. Compounds like quercetin and vitamin C are found in high amounts in Moringa leaves. And these compounds may help protect the inner lining of your arteries from long-term wear and tear. But that is not all. There is another important effect that researchers are interested in, and that involves something called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a natural substance produced by your body. Its role is simple, but extremely important. It helps your blood vessels relax. When your blood vessels are relaxed, they widen. Blood flows more easily, pressure decreases, and your heart does not have to work as hard. Some compounds found in Moringa, particularly isothiocyanates, may help support the production of nitric oxide, which means better blood flow, better circulation, less strain on the heart. Now add to that the mineral content of Moringa. It contains potassium, which helps balance sodium levels in the body. And most people, especially as they get older, consume more sodium than they should. Too much sodium can contribute to high blood pressure. Potassium helps counteract that effect. Moringa also contains magnesium,
which plays a key role in muscle function, including the muscles of your heart and blood vessels. So when you look at the full picture, Moringa is not just doing one thing. It is working from multiple angles, supporting blood sugar, supporting blood vessels, providing nutrients, offering antioxidant protection. And that combination is what makes it interesting. But now we need to pause again, because this is where many people get the wrong idea. You might be thinking, if this is so helpful, why haven't I heard about it before? That is a fair question, and it deserves an honest answer. The truth is, the research is promising, but it is not complete. Many of the strongest results come from animal studies. Human studies exist, but they are still limited. Some are small, some are short-term, and not all show the same level of effect. Science takes time. It builds slowly, carefully. And right now, Moringa sits in that space where there is enough evidence to be interesting, but not enough to make absolute claims. Which means one very important thing. Moringa is not a cure. It is not a replacement for medication. It is not a shortcut. And it is not something that will fix serious health problems on its own. And there is another important point. Because Moringa may help lower blood sugar, if you are already taking medication that does the same thing, combining them without guidance could push your levels too low. And low blood sugar can be dangerous. It can cause dizziness, confusion, weakness, even fainting. The same applies to blood pressure. If your pressure drops too much, that can also create problems. So the takeaway here is simple. This is not about fear. It is about awareness. Something can be helpful and still require careful use. That is true for medications, it is true for supplements, and it is true for natural plants like Moringa. So the smart approach is this. Bring this information to your doctor, have a conversation, see how it fits into your specific situation. Because your health is personal, and what works for one person may need adjustment for another. Now, with all of that in mind, let's move into something practical. Because at the end of the day, information is only useful if you can actually apply it.